He could score amazing goals.
Ginola, yes!
The skills in dribbling as well was beautiful.
It was so majestic to go both foot inside and outside. For me, it was just wow. It was wow.
C'est magnifique!
For ability on the football, probably best player I've ever played with.
The flamboyance that he had, personality, he had it, you know, you just knew when David walked in the room, you know, he had an aura about him.
Here he is. Oh, brilliant effort! What a goal by David Ginola!
7 beautiful years in the English Premier League. Mainly Newcastle and Spurs, Tottenham Hotspurs. I'm David Ginola and this is my story. From an early stage, I realized that I wasn't like any other kid, not only on the football pitch, but outside as well. It seems to me that I had a goal in my life to complete.
And so, for France, it comes down to just the one game. They need a draw. The Marseillaise being sung with extra gusto tonight.
The final game against Bulgaria was so important, and the pressure and the stress over us, it was just terrible. To take all the blame was really hard to cope with.
Seconds to go. France on the verge of clinching their World Cup place. But why has Ginola done that? All they needed to do was keep the ball. One last chance for the Bulgarians.
He's not the only one who made mistake at that time. The manager did mistake as well. We all did mistake on the pitch. It's not only David Ginola who lost against Bulgaria at that time. We all lost.
We were 11 plus the other players on the bench as well, so it was just an injustice about as a manager. I think a manager should take responsibility of his team when you are actually facing a defeat or an elimination for such an event like a World Cup. You have to take responsibility.
I remember he lived such under bad pressure, him and his family. It was terrible. It was nonsense.
C'est vrai, c'est terrible. C'est terrible.
I didn't decide to go to move to England because of that. It was an opportunity, but also I carry on playing for my country after that, but it wasn't the same. I went to Newcastle because I wanted to have my first step in the English Premier League, and it was incredible because I didn't realize how big and how passionate, how good was Newcastle as a team, as a place to play football in front of those fans. It was just, wow, what a place. That's football. I had a few phone calls, and I went to see some agents in Amsterdam, and I was there. I had Terry McDermott on the phone, and they said, well, we want you at Newcastle. Sir John Hall is the chairman. We really appreciate you, and Kevin Keegan is obviously a big fan of you, so think about it. So I said, well, okay, let's do that. So I was in my hotel room, and this is where I realized, and I called my wife and I said, well, we're going to England. Right, whereabouts? Northeast.
He's different, you know, he's a different way of training. sometimes almost, I suppose English players would call it taking the mick, but that's the way he plays. You know, he's got tremendous ability, and we're delighted with him, as I say, on and off the field.
I think he thought I didn't like him, because what had happened was I realised just how good he was from the start. So when you're doing training sessions, we used to always do small-sided games. I would try and go in and get a challenge on David, you know, and I'd play at full pelt because I had to, because he was that good. And sometimes, because he'd moved the ball, I'd clatter him. And he was going mad at me once, and he's going, "What is your problem?" You know, and all this and that, and he's throwing his arms around and everything else. And I was trying to explain to him that I'm learning.
Ginola.
Remember the first away game at Sheffield Wednesday, my first goal in the English Premier League.
He's taken no time to settle. That's wide! It's simply world class.
On the way back, we went for a beer in town, and the people in town were just, wow, crazy. It was just crazy.
From the man who may prove to be the finest foreign acquisition of the summer.
And people started to say in France, well, English football is not a football for David, it's not suitable for him, for his style. My answer was Player of the Month in September.
Got two across to Ginola, and he takes them on, Aston and Fox. And he's got the better of both of them, a real chance for Newcastle, and the Frenchman here, 1-1.
Away games sort of thing, I think the English lads get a few cans of lager on the way back, and yeah, David would have a glass of wine and started lighting up cigarettes, which I took offence to, and told Keegan I can't have people smoking in the back of our bus, which David thought was very funny. But no, he was he was totally different. It was a total culture shock, I think, seeing the Geordies and the way that our team spirit. I think he loved the area, I think he loved the people, and the fans loved him as well.
As a centre forward, the service that I got from, you know, Keith on one side and David on the other was absolutely sensational. I knew when he got the ball, all I had to do was make a run in the box and he'd find me. Inevitably, that's what he did. He'd get out on the wing, beat people, cross the ball, and you know, at the start, you know, first half of the season was absolutely sensational.
David's job was there to create and make things happen. My job was to get the ball to him. Sometimes you'd overlap for the sake of overlapping so he could then go inside and do what he wanted to do. But for me, it was a joy to play behind him, and it was for me to say, right, go and express, you know. He had a move where he'd go square himself up in front of the defender with his back. The crowd can see it. They can see what's happening. He's lulling people in. And it was like his theatre.
You can't put the blame on Keegan because we are on the football pitch. He could have made some better coaching, that's for sure. But on the other hand, it's about us to start believe that we can really make it. And I think when we started realizing that, we lost the concentration, we started to tremble, and that was the start of a change.
Had they beat us at Anfield that day, they'd have closed the gap on United, put the pressure on, and things could have been very different.
Ferdinand. That's great play in the control and the pass for Ginola. He's run beyond McAteer. 2-1 to Newcastle. David Ginola.
You saw the highs and lows, I think, of that Newcastle team in that game, in that 90 minutes. You know, attacking-wise, they scored 3 goals. They played well. Caused us at the back of Liverpool all sorts of problems. We overpowered them. We were also, you know, exciting team and scored 4.
Barnes. Still John Barnes. Collymore closing in. Liverpool lead in stoppage time. Kevin Keegan hangs his head. He's devastated.
That's why I think after the game at Liverpool, he lost the plot a little bit and talked about Manchester United, because he started to realize that we needed more than just playing great football to win the league.
I'll tell you, honestly, I will love it if we beat them. Love it.
I think this season, this particular season, we should have, you know, been lifting something at the end, and the major one, the league title. But anyway.
Hello.
I received this phone call from Bobby Robson. I was in the south of France. He called me and said, well, simple, David, I just want to tell you that I'm going to make an offer. I want you next year with me at Barcelona. And I said, well, okay. So I called Keegan and I said, listen, you know, I'm in the right age for a move like that. Going to such a big club, Barcelona, is probably the last chance of my career. So he said, no, David, I can't let you go. I think they went quite high as a price tag. They say, no, we don't need your money for David.
Kevin said to David, please don't go. You know, I know it's a dream of yours to go and everything else, but don't want you to go. We're on to good things here. We're going to move on to bigger and better things. And then within 6 months, Kevin leaves.
You pretend to think about the club, but you think about yourself. Saying that I'm not going to Barcelona because they're going to kill you, the fans. And 6 months later, you're not happy with Sir John Hall anymore and Freddie Shepherd, and you leave the club. That's a bit selfish.
It's one of those players you have to put your arm around. There's no point in having a go at David Ginola, and you know that's the sort of manager Kevin was to him, and he got the best out of him. You know, I think when once Kenny came in, it was a slightly different style of management, and I think we knew that parting of the ways was inevitable in the end.
When Kenny Dalglish arrived, and it was quite difficult for me. He made it as a really difficult time for me, and I started to realize that it was probably time to go and to leave the club. I've been very lucky in my life, growing up in such an environment. This is the famous Brigitte Bardot village of Saint-Tropez, and this is the most amazing place. Love it. I had this phone call from Alan Sugar saying, well, I heard the people at the club that the deal is almost complete. I'm in Villefranche-sur-Mer on my boat. You are a Spurs player for next season. We'd love you to come and have a dinner on the boat with me. My friend is a skipper, and I said, do you have an offshore boat available? And he came back to me and said, well, I got a very fast one. So when we arrived at the boat, he was standing on the side of the boat, but he didn't realize it was us until he saw me. And he said, so we went on the boat, we went up, and we were ready to go back in the dark. And he said, you're a Spurs player now, so you will not, you're going to stay on the boat, you're going to sleep, and you leave tomorrow morning.
Plenty of space for Ginola to gallop into. Armstrong. Vega has kept pace with the play. It comes for Ginola. Yes!
It's like a love story. When you start first to love someone, at the beginning is always brilliant. You got sparkles in your eyes, and it's always like that. I really love playing for Spurs, and it was a great signing for me.
Having David join was just, yeah, that sort of stardust that you sprinkle on the team, and you have players like that that you know can change a game, and you've got the quality in the rest of the squad that we had. I think we were right to be excited. I think the fans were right to be excited about that team at that moment.
Ginola, 2-0. What a finish by David Ginola.
David plays in a manner that the Tottenham supporters You know, they've always had a player like a David Ginola who plays that way with flair, skill and ability, and you know that he's always become a cult hero, and David was always destined to become a cult hero here. You know, he was sensational. In fact, he scored more goals here and became more direct at Tottenham than he was at Newcastle. He played in a bit of a different role, but I think when he came here, he really found his home.
Now Ginola slightly favours his left, and that's wide.
'99 was probably the peak, you know, of seeing a player who had suddenly joined that pantheon of great players, and specifically overseas players.
They're taking a couple of chances there, and Ginola nipped in and could punish him, and has.
I want to entertain, I want to be as good as possible, but I want to get back in the dressing room after the game thinking, well, job done. We had a good run in the Cups. We won the World Indian Cup. We played at Wembley. It was great to see the fans. They were so pleased with that. And I ended up the season Player of the Year. That was a bit of a shock for me. When I arrived at the Grosvenor House, I was looking at everyone was smiling at me, like it was something special, and I didn't know. And David, you're gonna be surprised. When I heard such a first, say, well, this year, Player of the Year, it's David Ginola. Wow.
I remember the people in France who was saying about what my choice, it wasn't the best choice for me to play in England. So it's just a reminder for them that I play in one of the best, if not the best, championship in the world, and I'm very proud of winning this tonight.
Up against United winning the treble, and what a team they were, and what, you know, individually, what great players they had in that team. I think that speaks volumes and says everything, that you can't argue with it, because it's the players around the Premier League at the time that are saying, yeah, the team hasn't done well, but David, what a great player he is.
This is nothing better to receive an award from your fellow professionals. It was an honour.
He was brilliant that year, and when he was at Newcastle, he was on the fringes of winning European Player of the Year because he was that good, and he came here and he was even better.
One of his runs again, and one of his goals again!
And I still couldn't understand how he hadn't won it, because not only should he have won PFA Player of the Year, but I thought that year he should have won European Player of the Year because he was that good.
He could probably produce a bit more end product, and that would be goals. I'd like to see him get around about 10 goals a season. He's got the ability, without question. He should be in double figures, in my opinion.
When he signed for the club, I remember the press, all the journalists coming and saying, oh, it's going to be tough for David to work with George Graham. So, you know, when you work with people who try to get all the attention, and actually the attention is towards someone else, it creates a little bit of tension around.
Good evening. Good evening.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
You understand how much you mean to the Spurs fans?
The Tottenham fans, they look at me every Saturday, and they judge me, and they think sometimes I'm great, sometimes I'm not so great, but they love me maybe because I'm just what I am, you know.
So that's why probably when I was voted Player of the Year, he started to realize, well, David is probably higher than me in the club.
Well, I don't think there was anyone that saw eye to eye with George Graham, to be honest. You know, I mean, he was that type. He was brilliant. I loved George as a manager. I thought he was really good. You knew where you stood, but you know, I don't think David, the style of play that David had, was traditionally the type of player that George ever had in his team.
He started to act as someone wanting to get rid of me, to a point that I received a phone call from Alan Sugar. He was in Spain, and he said, David, I had this request from George Graham. He wants to put you on the transfer list. I said, you know what it... You know, I told you that I want to stay at the club, I want to end up my career at Spurs, and you are telling me that I'm on the transfer list. Player of the Year on the transfer list because the manager decided to. So, right, okay. I can't stay with someone who doesn't want me anymore.
I think he found his spiritual home as far as football was concerned. It was a place that he probably enjoyed playing football the most and came to a premature end. But that happens in football, unfortunately. You know, you're at places one day, a new manager comes in with new ideas and unfortunately there has to be sacrifices.
Okay.
I knew when I left Spurs that I will not, at 32, 33 years old, build something as strong as what I did previously. Signing for Villa, money was bright, everything seems to be right, but it wasn't. It's difficult time. No, it was difficult to especially end up my career like that. Plenty of things in my mind. I could have played America, I could have played anywhere, but I didn't want to move. I didn't want to go and play in a country if it wasn't for football itself.
John had his way of dealing with players, and he probably on the odd occasions chose the wrong way to deal with David, you know, which is down to man management and getting to know your personalities in the dressing room. And I think David may have not played the way that John liked to play, which is get back, work hard. You know, David he's a flair player. Leave him to do what he's got to do. And once they got that sorted, I think they were fine. The thing about John Gregory calling David fat, I can't remember the gaffer calling David fat at all. And as we all see, when he takes his top off, he's not fat. It was one of those things that you had to work together, get on with it. You produce the goods for me, I'll play you. Simple as that.
The last three managers I had was George Graham, John Gregory, and David Moyes. And David Moyes didn't play me anymore. I could understand that. My mind wasn't there anymore. But on my final game of the final game of the season, we played the game at Arsenal, Highbury.
We never spoke on the pitch, never spoke, only spoke once, and that was the day that he retired. Oh, good ball. At the end of the game, he came over and he went, I said, David, can we have a hug? We had a little hug and he said, you just kicked lumps out of me for the last 10 years. And I said, yeah, but you've scored some good goals against me as well. And there was a mutual respect there that there still is today, and we are good mates.
I soon realized that football was all my life, and I miss the game, I miss the dressing room, I miss my relationship with the fans.
I'm happy that here in England you gave something to him, you know. So that's why I think England has been his adoption country, you know.
Yeah, that's really nice because as a football player, when I go and travel around England, still amaze me such things. People are always really nice, and I have a lot of affection and devotion around me, and I say because probably as a man I behaved myself properly towards the people, always giving time to the fans for autographs and a few words and a smile. And okay, people remember you as a player, but the only thing left is also the man. And if you have been rubbish as a man, people will not see you as a good person. And this is why I think if I be in the game of football, I will be really taking care of people. Not only the players, but the people at the football club.